Good evening. Welcome to the Storytelling Live evening, which we are hosting for the first time in this format at RefuFest. I'm Marina Šternová and I'm representing Revue Prostor, and I will guide you together with my colleague Patrick Hamus from media platform JÁDU through this evening.
Hello, welcome from my side as well. Thank you for coming. Before we start, I would also like to introduce another person who you already heard, who will guide you through this evening together with us. It's Mudaki, Czech-based sound artist, DJ and music producer, originally from Minsk, Belarus. She will be providing the soundtrack for this event, and she will also be playing here at the after party here in Vila Štvanice, so you can stay here after we finished with this program.
And this year's Storytelling Live is a connection between the two worlds. RefuFest festival that is based on a meeting of people with different experience and stories, and media platforms from the network called Perspectives.
Linking seemingly small human stories with the major issues of the present that shape and form our societies is an important task of the media, or we believe it should be a more important task of the media that they take on. And storytelling has proven a very effective way of giving voice and a platform to people who are usually often not heard in the daily news.
And, all speakers that you are going to listen to tonight are affiliated with particular European media. There will be Elias Bučko and Anastasiia Aharková from the German media platform JÁDU, Nika, Datiashvili from our media platform Revue Prostor, and Viktória Citráková from Slovak-based media platform Kapitál, Franek Diduch from Polish Kultura Liberálna, and Sara Paksite from Nara from Lithuania. And due to the international cast, the evening will be all in English.
This evening's Storytelling Live combines live storytelling, surprisingly, journalistic work and the personal experiences of people from various countries in Europe. The evening is organized as part of the Perspectives network of Central Eastern European newsrooms. And thanks to this network, we can give the stage, these voices can meet here together this evening on one stage. What unites them is an interest in stories of people who cross or who have crossed borders, geographical borders, cultural borders, social borders. If you want to get more information on the Perspectives Network, on the stories that you will hear this evening, on the performers, or whatever, you can find everywhere displayed these QR codes. There's also one at the table with the merch, so you have a motivation to go there. And this QR code will link you to the information and also to an evaluation form. So we would be very grateful if you could tell us your opinion about this evening afterwards.
Yeah, and for organizing such an event we need partners, so at this point I would like to thank Ministry of Culture, the Czech Ministry of Culture still, City of Prague, State Fund of Culture, and Goethe Institute, and more importantly European Commission, who generously co-funds the activities of Perspective Media Consortium for their support.
Yeah, and now we are finally getting close to the main part of this program. We will be inviting 6 reporters on stage, and each of them will have 8 minutes for their presentation.
And the first speaker will be a reporter from Slovakia, from Slovak media Kapitál.
And for those who do not know Kapitál yet, Kapitál is a Slovak critical left-wing portal which focuses on global environmental, feminist and post-colonial issues, as well as local economic, social and cultural programs.
And the reporter who will be now presenting her work is Viktória Citráková, who is an artist and writer. Her work explores topics of collective vulnerability, intimacy, and social political climate. And in the presentation, Viktória will introduce a series of reportages focused on young people living through a period marked by war and political instability. So please welcome Viktória. So I have one teeny tiny question for you. As a Slovak studying in Prague, what does home mean to you? And is it a particular place, the people around you, or something else?
Thank you. Oh my God, just my heart starts to beat so fast. I need to calm down a little bit. I was thinking about this question because you told me in advance what it will be, and I was just like thinking that it's actually a great privilege to be a Slovak in Prague because you can just speak your nature, like your natural language, and everybody understands you. But at the same time, you are like in a nice metropolitan city. It's like great. But I also wanted to share one experience that recently I did, like as a small exercise with myself. And it actually brings me this topic of like, what does home mean to me? Because I actually tried to write down on a piece of paper like 5 telephone numbers of people that I would like call in a case of some emergency or like conflict or like some type of crisis. And actually it was really strong exercise for me because, as you said, like I'm not from here, my family is not that far away, but it is far away. I moved to Prague just like 1 year ago, so my social base is not that strong yet. So it was just like quite nice realization for me to try to write down like 5 names and realize what are the people and communities surrounding me. So I just wanted to share this little story.
So home are the people around you.
Yes.
Those numbers. Yeah, okay, that's nice. It deserves an applause, right? So you ready? You have the clicker?
Yes.
Yeah. The mic is ready. Check it out.
Yes. The mic is ready?
Go. So go ahead.
Enjoy.
Okay, already. I can train for years, invest thousands of euros in gear, but imagine it all starts and some ordinary 500 euro drone amputate my legs. All those knowledge, all those sacrifice weekends, gone. No one will care. That's why I've stopped saying no to family parties or a beer with friends. I call it my social renaissance. I refuse to be at war before it even starts, otherwise I will be ruining my life during peacetime. This is the story of Andrius, who is one among the others that I interviewed in my articles, where I try to ask them how young people perceives the threat of a war. And what do those people have in common? They are young, they are Generation Z, the same as me, and they grew up in a globalized idea of a world that is surrounded by everlasting peace, at least in Europe. And also, none of them expected the war directly. They are from countries like Lithuania, Slovakia, Czech Republic, and this is exactly the focus of my articles, that I'm trying to talk with people who are from so-called peaceful countries, and I try to capture how these people perceive the threat of the war, which is still not here, but very close. And this feeling is very nicely described by Katri Raik, who is mayor of the city Narva, which lies on the borders between Estonia and Russia, and it's divided by a river exactly on half. Half of it is European and half of it is Russian. And she just described this feeling as a broken identity. She describes it as a person who lives on the edge of the conflict. We are not directly in the conflict, but we are not also completely outside of it either. So basically, it just means for me that if the war is not physically here, it doesn't mean we are not affected by it, right? And my friend Martin, he describes it very nicely. Life probably won't get any better. Sorry, I just turn this. Life probably won't get any better than it is right now. I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm studying at school I enjoy, I have good relationships with my family who supports me, I have a good job where I'm happy, I have plenty of free time, I pay low rent, I have a girlfriend I love, there is still plenty of drinking water, the temperature outside aren't dangerous, and for now I can afford everything I need. I realize that having all these things is a great privilege and not everyone can say the same. I realize even more that all those things can change and some of them definitely will. Okay, I'm interviewing young people, but what about me and my story actually? So, my mom comes from a small city of Lviv in Ukraine, but actually my connection to Ukraine was quite distant before the full-scale invasion because I don't speak the language. I was there only twice in my life and the only connection to the Ukraine is like WhatsApp calls with my family, which is there. So I was also feeling kind of like this broken identity. And with speaking with my friends, I also noticed that it's kind of actually hard to navigate those feelings of empathy and closeness with people who are affected by it, but also kind of try to create a distance and try to be like, not go insane by all those feelings. And I just want to illustrate also one very strong topic for me, and it's like using of a language in the context of war. Leila Al-Jarev, who is journalist and former student of NYU Dhabi, she also experienced interesting identity issue. She is half Syrian, which puts her in the perspective of a victim, and she's half Russian, which puts her on the perspective on the side of aggressor. And this story and the story of her, she cannot identify with both of those identities, you know? She cannot define where her homeland is. And I think it's very important how we talk about war, conflicts and identity, and the way how we use this language shapes our idea how we understood those topics, right? So talking about war is spectrum. On the one side, you have people who maybe is approaching this theme for the first time. On the other hand, you have the people who are affected by it and consumed by it constantly. So for me, when we say speaking about war, what does it mean? I like to use this analogy of a loss. For example, imagine a loss of your family member, for example. If you experience something like that before, at first you feel shock, right? This is the first emotion you have. Then you feel denial, you don't believe that it happened. Then you feel grief, intense grief or exhaustion, or you feel desire for them to be back, to turn, or desire to have the situation to be as it was before. And then when the time is slowly going and going, you start to accept the situation, right? You start to reflect, or you start to learn from the situation. You start to realize, okay, maybe it also brings something to me. And this is what talking about war means to me directly. And other people is sharing similar perspective. For example, Kasius from Lithuania, he is talking about how it's hard to find balance between being informed and being constantly exposed to images of human suffering, which we often perceived in a social media. And that's why, for me, it's important to not have my articles anonymized. I like to share the perspectives of the people, their faces. I like to use this kind of like soft language where I used personal perspective, and I like to not only write but also to read about other specific individual stories, and it kind of communicate with me a little bit more than reading about silent masses. And also as Austria, with her, we talked about preparedness, because Austria, she explained to me that she often talks with her family and parents and her boyfriend about how she is preparing for war. For example, she has a home radio. She has a specific spot which she chooses amongst her family where they will meet in the case of the conflict, if there is like some internet or signal shortage. And for me it was a nice experience of how preparing is not about like panic, but about finding ways how to at least gain a small sense of control in this uncertainty. Gediminas, when the war in Ukraine broke out, his family sheltered 12 people in their house. And as he says, it was February, it was freezing outside, offering them a bed was the least we could do at the time. And often when we talk about conflict, we also talk about resilience, which means how we are able to respond to that threat or the conflict. And there is one thing which is often discussed, and it's idea of superpowers, which means that every person contributes in the situation of conflicts with what they have. So for example, if there is a conflict and you have a car, you can evacuate injured people. If you have a basement, you can offer shelter, or if there is still running water in your house, you can just offer this running water to other people who cannot access it. So these kind of basic things, which we usually perceive as normal basic things in our lives, in the situation of crisis becomes our superpowers, and it's good to acknowledge them and know that they can help other people as well. And the last example is from Rachel, who is a student of security studies here in Czech Republic. And she says it's a great privilege that we live in time of peace right now, and that is why it's important to build the collective resilience. And what does this resilience mean? It basically means the ability of society to absorb shock. So this is maybe where I want to add my presentation. And lastly, I just want to share that I'm not a journalist. I'm more as an art writer, as I was introduced in the beginning. And this is how I approach my articles, from a storytelling perspective, because I believe that sharing stories can build this collective resilience and this collective empathy that we have. And there is no time left, but I just want to add with some small exercise for all of you that you can take away from this presentation. Try to think about 5 telephone numbers that you will write down on the paper in the case of crisis. Who are those people? It's the people around you, it's the people you don't see for a long time. Yeah, think about it and have a nice day.
Now let me introduce you a reporter from the Polish media, Kultura Liberalna.
And Kultura Liberalna is a leading Polish intellectual magazine established as a weekly publication in 2009, and among its contributors it counts eminent scholars, politicians and journalists like Franek Dziduch. Please come
join
on
us.
stage.
Franek Dziduch. So you are a researcher and journalist from Poland, and currently you are completing your degree in cultural analysis at University in Amsterdam. And in your bio you wrote that you use the perspectives of literature, performance and film to tell stories. So I wonder which form is closer to you and why.
Yeah, so thank you for this question. I think what I'm really interested when it comes to art in all of its forms, it's how it's an exercise from strangeness and from being confronted with otherness, and especially with stories like migration, it is salient for us to listen to other perspectives. And in that sense, I think literature might be the closest for me, because it's the most, in my opinion, radical way of immersing yourself into different worlds, different alternative that you can take back to your own.
I'm happy for this answer since we are doing cultural and literary magazine, so thank you for that. Okay, so go ahead, check the mic.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Thank you. All right. So, hello everyone, once again I'm Franek Dziduch, and I will be telling you about the article I published for Kultura Liberalna in November 2025 about how temporary work agencies exploit Eastern European labor migrants, with the focus being the Polish labor migrants. But before I delve into the subject, I want to tell a little bit about how I arrived at this topic, and in that sense I will be talking about two Polands that I discovered when I moved to Amsterdam 5 years ago to study. And the first one being the one that I had the privilege to be a part of, which is the European Union student community in Amsterdam, especially after Brexit. The Netherlands became one of the main destinations for international students to study, and as you can see, in 2022, 122,000 international students were studying in the Netherlands, with 93,000 being from Europe. And being part of this, I really, in the beginning, had this idealistic vision of, wow, here in Amsterdam is truly cosmopolitan, and even if I'm coming from Eastern Europe, I'm part of this larger European network, and maybe here the promise of the borderless Europe and the slogan of United in Diversity is actually fulfilled. But this idealistic vision, as I mentioned, was quickly shattered because I was discovering that there is a different Poland that I was discovering on the streets of Amsterdam, for example, because very often I would see that the homeless people in Amsterdam would not be speaking Dutch, they would be speaking Polish. And there were occasions where people, for example, would approach me to ask for money, and I would discover that we are Polish together. And I was very interested and confused by this tension of how come we share the same cultural and ethnic identity, but ultimately we are divided by class. This led me to explore the history of labor migration in the Netherlands, particularly with Polish people. So in 2007 already, 3 years after the European Union enlargement, they formed the largest minority in the Netherlands, and in 2024, Polish people comprised 1/4 of all European Union migrants, which is actually followed by Romanians and Bulgarians. So it is really the Eastern Europeans who are coming to the Netherlands to work, and they come here with the temporary work agencies, and they basically do works that, importantly, the Dutch people wouldn't want to do. So it's the logistics at the warehouses of big supermarkets, the horticulture, agriculture, and basically what the Netherlands is turning the blind eye from is that their country is run by the Eastern Europeans. Question I have for you, can you guess how many temporary work agencies are there in the Netherlands? We don't have much time, so you can just shout.
100.
Hundreds?
25.
25?
14.
Okay, I don't think you're ready for this answer. It's 20,000. So this is already the first indicator of, you can imagine how hard it is to regulate and monitor all these agencies and what they are doing. Here are some of the main agencies. And as one interviewee told me, Eric Pentega, who's the leader of the largest labor union in the Netherlands, FNV, the agency office can often consist of a car, a phone, a computer. So in order to find my protagonists and my interviewees, I started going to Facebook group chats that of Polish diaspora, and you can see that they have a lot of members, 53,000 members, 85,000 members, but the one that really caught my attention is Oszukani przez Otto Workforce, which means cheated on by Otto Workforce, the largest temporary work agency, which comprises 15,000 members. So once again, you can see the scope of this situation, and through these I met a lot of my protagonists, but I also found out about the strike that was taking place in June 2025 that lasted until mid of July, which to this day remains the largest labor migrant strike in the Netherlands. And it was mostly Polish people protesting about the collective union agreement that took effect, unfortunately, in the 1st of January, that was very detrimental to their already poor working standards. Which brings me to tell you a little bit about how the European Union free borders allow for large-scale exploitation. Basically, since we're all European Union, there's no need for a work permit or visa. You can just arrive to the Netherlands, and because of that, there are very flexible internal regulations of the market, and there's no top-down international approach. There's no agreements between, for example, Poland and the Netherlands, or European Union agreements on how these agencies should operate. And since the temporary work agencies do not ask for the knowledge of English or Dutch, it can be very lucrative, and it can feel like it's a nice, quick money income, because they also promise housing, health insurance, and transport to work. But actually, this is the easiest way to exploit people, because as Agnieszka Pióro, who is working for Fair Work, which is a Dutch company that fights the modern slavery in the Netherlands, has told me, modern slavery is not working under gunpoint, but making a person dependent on the employer on each dimension of their life. Because if you are dependent on housing, health insurance, and transport to work, and you don't speak English or Dutch, if anything goes wrong, you're basically on your own in this country. So these are some of the forms of exploitations that I discovered. The payment inequality compared to Dutch employees, keeping migrant workers on 0-hour contracts, arbitrary norms that migrant workers need to meet, unfounded charge of money from payslips, terrorizing, sexual assaults on women, and housing that does not meet the Dutch standards. This is an illustration of a housing that I visited of two workers who have this very small window, as you can see, this window is not going outside, so there is no circulation, there's no ventilation, so effectively, because it's going to the living room, it's illegal under the Dutch standards, and it can become very dangerous with the heat wave, for example, that is approaching. So the 0-hour contracts, for example, they don't offer any fixed hours, and they don't offer holiday leave. And actually in the Netherlands, after a year of working on a 0-hour contract, legally you're obliged to go on a permanent contract, but because the temporary work agencies basically displace people into different jobs and different accommodations, this allows them to keep them on this precarious contract that do not develop into something more stable. And the arbitrary norms, as an example, at the logistics, where you work as an order picker at the warehouses, you're expected to sometimes meet up to 600 orders by hour. So you can imagine that this is a task almost impossible to make. And the unfounded charge of money from payslips, a lot of people would tell me that very often they would receive a payslip and see that there is some money missing on the grounds that, for example, they didn't return a bike that they actually did. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of different forms of exploitation. The question that would be 8 months forward, has anything changed? Unfortunately not. So the strikes ended quite rapidly, mid-July, because not enough people went out, 360, which is still a big number, but not enough to make a change. And the labor union that organized it was afraid that they could get a lawsuit from one of the big supermarkets. The strikes were supposed to renew in September, but this didn't happen. And I contacted one of my interviewees in preparation for this presentation, and well, we can summarize it the way he did. If the Netherlands does not change the laws and does not control the agencies, labor camps for migrants will continue to exist. There is one informal outcome of the strikes that I want to finish with on a hopeful note, is that the solidarity that emerged amongst the strikers, they started creating WhatsApp group chats that were bottom up, when they started shifting, changing the shifts between each other. They started saying hello to each other during work, because before it was very impersonal. So there is a growing sense of disillusionment amongst the labor migrants, and a sense of realizing that they deserve more fair contracts. So, thank you very much. If you want, you can read the article via the QR code.
Thank you, Franek, for the presentation on the modern form of slavery and exploitation of Polish migrants in the Netherlands. And I don't know if we are moving to a more positive topic. I don't think so. But let's bring our next presenter.
I believe there are positive aspects in it, right? Yeah. Hi, Anastasiia, Aharková for JÁDU.
And JÁDU is an online magazine in 4 languages that brings together voices from Central and Eastern Europe to explore how people experience social, political and cultural change. It privileges context, lived experience and dialogue to fight polarization and simplify narratives.
If you are a regular visitor of RefuFest and you have been there last year at Campus Hybernská and you have been maybe even there at our event last year, you might remember Anastasiia because she's already an experienced live storyteller. Last year you made a video report for us, for JÁDU, and it was also the topic of your presentation. It was about how Ukrainian refugees are perceived, how they are portrayed in the media, which hoaxes and disinformation is spreading about them. And we actually already last year talked about this year's topic. I said we would be interested to hear more. I didn't think that she would be here again with us on stage, but you are now. It's kind of a continuation of last year. So in what way?
I think at first I want to answer your first question, whether there is something positive, and I want to say that there is always something positive to find about stories, because people are inherently positive creatures. We've tried to find positiveness even in very dramatic and difficult stories. And to answer your second question, I feel like this presentation or this story is a continuation of the last year's story, because the center of this story is also people. And these are people from Ukraine, Ukrainian refugees. This is why this topic is still very important for me, because I myself am a Ukrainian refugee who lives in Prague for 4 years. And that's why I keep writing about people, about Ukrainian refugees, and about the country that is affected by war, by the Russian invasion. And people find it hard, both in Ukraine and even living in a peaceful country, knowing that their country is at war. And these are the ways in which this story and this research is a continuation of a previous one.
So we are curious.
Thank you. Hi everyone, and I'm really pleased that I can present for you here this evening. I want to start with a very interesting question. Which option would you choose? Imagine that you are a foreign worker in a new country that you have never been before, you have never lived before. I will describe to you 2 options of how your first job in this country will look like. And then at the end you can just raise a hand for whichever option you as a foreign worker would prefer. Option A. You wake up in the morning for your first job. You have time for a nice coffee, maybe go to the gym, you arrive to your job in a comfortable nice car or a taxi, and on the way you can get your second coffee with some dessert. If you feel like you are a bit maybe not competent for the job that you do, or you want to change your position, you can also take a leave for a course or vocational training. And for this time, let's say you will have money to fit yourself. But the catch here is that you will have to wait for a long time to obtain this job, and you will have to put some effort in it. And now option B. You wake up already at the table at your work. You don't really speak the language that people speak there, so you have to figure out on the go. Additionally, you learn the specifics of the job as well on the go, because you found this job very quickly, and you feel like you are a bit overcompetent for this job, but you still do it. And here the benefit is that as a foreigner in a new country, you actually find employment very quickly, become financially independent, and have more control over your life and of your choices. So, who would prefer option B or option A? Raise a hand. Okay, now who would prefer option B? Not so many people picking option B. I wonder why. And now imagine that these 2 drastically different ways is how finding employment feels for Ukrainian refugees abroad. Obviously, these are allegories. I'm not describing actual steps or actual things that people do at work. The experiences of refugees are different, and the experiences of people in one country can be drastically different, let alone people in different countries. But these are the generalizations I made from histories or stories of people I talked to in Germany and Czechia. And these are, again, allegories, so I'm just generalizing how the feeling is of finding your first employment in a country as a refugee. And now, as we together will go through these stories, you will be able to figure out which path relates rather to which country, Czechia or Germany. My research started with the question, why? why the employment rate of Ukrainian refugees is twice as high in Czechia as it is in Germany, even though Germany has far more experience with foreigners, migrants and refugees and their integration and adaptation. Here on the table you can see how already pretty early on, since the start of the invasion, more people started working quickly in Czechia than they did so in Germany. And by the way, this table can be a very good disprovement of any statement of populist Czech politicians who tell you that Ukrainians just live off social support, get a lot of money, and don't invest in Czech economy at all. But the question here remains why Czech employment of Ukrainian refugees was so quick, and how it impacted, at what cost did this quickness came, and how it reflected on real stories of Ukrainian refugees. If I had to summarize quickly the Czech strategy for integration, it would be work first, integrate faster. Integrate later, I'm sorry. Because Czechia really emphasizes the quick labor market entry for Ukrainian refugees. It can be reflected and seen in financial support, because, for example, over the years the support was decreased in its inclusivity, in its duration, and people were motivated to actually find job very quickly, as we will see from the stories as well. Also, Czechia does not nudge people to learn the language. It is not obligatory, unlike in Germany. It's fair to say that Czech is very similar to Ukrainian, much more similar than German is, but obviously if you want to find high-skilled employment, you will need to go to a course and to learn the language better. Additionally, here you can see how Czechia and Germany approach financial support. And in this little table, you can see that financial support that Ukrainian refugees receive here in Czechia is 17% of what a minimum wage worker in Czechia would receive. And this number already includes housing support, because in Czechia there are two different payments, and this one includes both, like the essentials and housing support. In Germany, on the other hand, 26%, financial aid is 26% of what a minimum wage worker would receive, and additionally, Germany also covers housing and insurance. So in Germany also you live in a house that is financed by the state, and you receive this money also to cover your basic needs. So as you can see, Czechia really emphasizes employment, and sometimes it nudges and motivates people to find a job as fast as quickly. Sometimes, as we can see also from the stories, not leaving people with another choice. Now, how all of those things that I described actually reflect on life of people. Here are some bits and pieces of stories that I gathered while talking to people. This is a slide for Czechia, and later we'll look also at Germany. But everything is not black and white, just as you could see from option A and B that I presented at the beginning. Some people did tell me that they felt very stressed and pressured to find employment, that they did not have the money because the financial support didn't cover all their needs. But at the same time, many people felt grateful because they were able to become financially independent. Some people said they were able to utilize their English knowledge. Some people combined 2, 1, 3 jobs with the language learning because they wanted to switch. So they took a very proactive approach. Some people also were able to employ in Czech and Ukrainian-led businesses in Czechia because there are a lot of them, and it's easier to find such a place of employment, and it's easier than in Germany. Now, if we look at what people say in Germany, we see that this gives off a vibe of option A, because you have time and you can take a vocational training, you can take a language course, which is also a longer course than it is in Czechia. For example, in Germany the course can last for 6 months. In Czechia it, for example, lasts for maybe 3 months, obviously depending on the course. But at the same time, we see that many people felt demotivated to find a job, because some people told me they did not want to leave social support because if they start working, then the salary will not be as high as the social support they receive. And a lot of people who already found employment were a proof of that. But at the same time, we do see that here people felt more supported by the state and less pressured to find employment, so they were able to have time to orientate themselves in a new country. But now I want to mention one thing that unites and impacts the motivation of Ukrainians to find employment and integrate in Czechia, in Germany, and all over the EU. And I would call this one of the biggest factors. And it is uncertainty. People do not know what will happen after their refugee visa ends. A lot of people told me that they, for example, wanted to open a business, the business that they had in Ukraine, but they couldn't do it because they were worried that after their refugee visa ends, they will not be eligible enough to stay. And this impacts people's motivation to learn the language. It impacts the overall mental feeling, because you do not know what will happen to you in 1 year, in 2 years. You do not know if you will be able to stay, and thus you do not know if you will be able to use all the skills, the language and the integration over these years. And now I told you everything, you know everything, so I want to leave you with a question that captivated me throughout my research and still captivates me because I'm not able to give an objective answer to that. Does faster actually mean better? Do faster policies actually help people? And how to balance the need for people to feel protected and to feel comfortable in a new country escaping war, but at the same time to motivate people to find employment and to better integrate in their new country of residence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anastasiia.
Thank you, Anastasiia. And if you want to check her text, Anastasia's text, previous text that were written for JÁDU, so check the website of JÁDU, right?
JADUmagazine.eu.
And now, please welcome Nika Datiashvili. And Nika is a film student and an emerging reporter, and is currently completing an internship in the film school in Łódź, right? And he's our young reporter.
For Revue Prostor, for those who do not know Revue Prostor, which is only a few of you, but I will add it, it's a collective of journalists, academics and writers. It is a platform for open dialogue and communication of a wide range of views on current issues. Revue Prostor's main goal is to address different and diverse groups of readers and followers and thereby cross the boundaries of closed social and opinion bubbles.
And I have a question for you. So you've mentioned in your bio that writing allows more anonymity and sensitivity towards storytelling. And until now you worked with film and with camera. So can you tell me, like, what can writing capture that film sometimes cannot?
I think that while writing, you can maybe capture some situations where the aspect of not being seen, maybe you can do it better while writing, because with cameras, I think the whole element of the intimacy and or maybe danger or something that's going on can vanish, or people may feel uncomfortable while being filmed. And especially when it comes to this project, many parts of filming that have been uncomfortable.
Thank you for your answer. So welcome please Nika Datiashvili.
Yeah, hello. I will be talking about something that many people may consider distinctly Georgian, but I have to say something. I have to say that I grew up in Prague, and everything I know about Georgia, or most of the things I know about Georgia, come from conversations, from stories I heard from other Georgians, and partly also from my personal observations I've done on my travels to Georgia, from the time when I was allowed to go there. Yeah. And how did I start with this project? Was that since childhood I've been hearing words, sort of like fragments of words rather, because I didn't really understand what these Georgian people were talking about. And mostly words of shame, or about a broken name Georgians have abroad because of their tendency to find somehow like a loophole in the system or a shortcut to something. And the way they were speaking about it to me struck me as if doing something illegal was a distinctly Georgian talent, which I later went to explore in Georgia, and what I found when I got there maybe sometime you can end up in a city called Kutaisi. It used to be a capital of Georgia. It is not anymore, but it has a really big history in crime and in criminality. There's been a lot of wars in between gangs, a lot of killings. And here I wanted to show some tombstones of those thieves. I didn't really make these pictures, just so now these pictures are from Sergei Stroitelev. And here we can see depicted so-called thief in law. The in-law comes from these thieves really thought about themselves as a righteous authority, as someone who is doing good for the others. And on many of these tombstones, you can see that people honor them, the portraits, the people that are portrayed on them are very young. This is how these people, these thieves in law, which were like a very respected authority in crime. They gained a really big influence in the 90s when sort of the whole political system in Georgia collapsed and there was pretty much no rules, no laws. These people were gaining more and more control over the situation. Ordinary people would go to them for help, for money loans, for when they had a problem with someone, they would go to these thieves in law to ask them for help. On one of these depictions, you can see a wife of the thief crying for him just over his tombstone. And yeah, this is the way how these people like to be depicted, almost as a Roman emperors. You can see there's many also symbolics that have to do with Gulag, with Soviet prison system, some symbolics, and also with Orthodox Church, and also with some mountain and more older Georgian traditions, which all of this sort of got mixed up, and these thieves in law really come from this background. And once I left Kutaisi, I went to a port town called Poti in western Georgia, where part of my family comes from. And coming there, I was especially interested in what males think about this and what it has to do with, let's say, patriarchal values or masculinity in general. And I was asking these guys what they could tell me about thievery, and here I got what one of the guys told me. Yeah. I know a lot of thieves. Thieves in law, ordinary thieves, all kinds. First of all, if you want to become a thief, you have to come up through the street. You have to be a good fella first, and then become a thief. You have to steal. You have to pickpocket. You have to steal in Europe and abroad. You have to deal with street business. You have to know other thieves and stay in touch with them. 15-year-old guy is telling me this. If you want to become a thief, you need real ambition. It's a career. It also depends on what you've already done in your life and what risks you have taken. And of course, you have to do time in prison. How much time, I ask? At least 30 or 40 years. At least half of your life, you have to love prison. Prison has to become part of your identity. At that moment, the aunt of one of the boys joined the conversation about thievery, and I thought she was about to tell us to stop talking nonsense. But instead she said, if you are a thief, you can't just buy villas and Mercedeses for yourself, you also have to send gifts back into the prison. Exactly, auntie, the guy asked me. then he added on what influence thieves have on society, and he said, a huge one. It helps us keep order here. Just like politics have its place, thievery has its place too. And that's exactly why thieves should stay out of politics. A thief should mind his own business and never sell himself. Do you understand? The thieves run this place. Whether people admit it or not, here in Georgia, we respect thieves a lot. So basically, when I got this conversation filmed, I was really shocked, and everything that I was later doing while being in Georgia was sort of related to this world of the thieves, and I was really trying just to capture some of the aspects, some of the fragments it comes up with. That would be some hierarchy of roles these people have, the very specific language that would be like a Russian Georgian slang they're using, and that is really embedded into the language. Ordinary Georgians would talk half Russian, half Georgian with you, and a lot of these words would be actually the slang that comes out of these times of the thieves-in-law. And of course the Poti has a specific context because it's actually a port city with many connections to business chains, to business links. It's also a very neglected city, and a city where a state has been long failing. So maybe it's only because of this reason that a parallel order, such as that thieves-in-law had, would become more important in this area. And the whole fact of just getting around problems, not solving them, sort of sitting, plotting, negotiating yourself out, and intimidating, persuading others, just getting what you want without any hard work, I think is what motivates guys maybe in Poti, because there's not many job opportunities, and there's not many opportunities in general, such as maybe we have here in Prague. So I understand why these people like this world of thieves, but yeah, these are some pictures of how Poti looks like today. This is how these thieves were looking back in Gulag. This is my film. And this is some other screens from my film. I will be working on this project more, especially in writing. And I would like to go further in how this style and this behavior of thieves happens in nightlife. Thank you.
So thank you, Nika, for bringing us to this, for this excursion to this very specific subculture. And now?
Yeah, now we invite the last, but not least, reporter on stage, Elias, Bučko for JÁDU. Sorry you had to wait so long, but somebody has to.
And we already said something about JÁDU, so maybe we should add something about the transformation of the media.
Yes.
So I'll start.
You start?
I start.
Yeah.
So, JÁDU has been funded and published by the Goethe Institute, right? Which is also the lead partner in the Perspective Consortium. But this cooperation will end this year.
Next year, in the beginning of next year, yeah, we are funded and published already since 2011 by the Goethe Institute. However, we will transform, as Marina already mentioned. We will be our own publishers. You can think maybe of some smaller scale version of what Czech Weekly Respect did. And yeah, from next year on, we will we will be running our own business. Hopefully you can support us, of course. And yeah, but we will continue with the same editorial team as now, and we also hope we can continue with most of the reporters and writers that we have now. For example, with Elias. Hi.
And Elias is a journalist from Slovakia, currently based in Czechia, and his writing often explores art, migration, and the plurality of queer and trans experiences across shifting political landscapes. So please welcome Elias.
Yeah, Elias, you're also part of that small Dutch connection here tonight.
Yes.
You already have the degree in cultural analysis from the University of Amsterdam. Did you know each other before?
But we had the same thesis supervisor.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we have been talking about how to introduce what is going to happen now, and we were a little bit afraid to already say something that should actually be in the presentation, but you allowed me to mention that your story is connected with Poppy Seed. How?
Yes, thank you for this extremely surprising question that I have not heard before. I indeed start my article with an anecdote about poppy seeds and how, as I was a student in the Netherlands, I one day got a craving for a Slovak pastry that is traditionally made with poppy seeds. So I went on this whole hunt in Amsterdam to buy poppy seeds. I went through all the Dutch supermarkets that I knew. I could not find any, so I ended up finding some in the Polish supermarket eventually, but it is significant to me because it was the first time perhaps that I realized how important food is for cultural identity, for experiencing it, but also perhaps for sharing it with friends later who might not know it, which is also what I did. So yeah, that's my story with poppy seeds.
Yeah, and we will hear more now.
Yes, but before maybe I start, I would like to invite you, the audience, to experience the story with me a bit. So I brought some goods from the supermarket, which I think I might distribute over if those of you who can and want to. Yes. Yes, you can just let it.
Okay, so next 8 minutes are yours.
So, about 6 years ago, I moved to the Netherlands to do my studies, and I was very excited and joyful about this new chapter in my life as a young Slovak student. But eventually, I landed on my feet a bit and got a bit more grounded and started realizing and feeling my foreignness in this new country. And above all, loneliness, because I was very new, I did not know anyone, I have not really made a lot of friends yet, so I was very much craving connection, human connection. Must have been around this time when in the streets of Amsterdam I came across an Eastern European supermarket which immediately intrigued me. So I entered and immediately almost felt a sense of relief. I looked inside and the aisles were stacked with Eastern European produce of all kinds, and there was chatter of Eastern European languages that I could not necessarily understand always, but the sound was familiar, ranging from Polish, Ukrainian, Russian, Czech, Romanian, you name it. So with all this, I could pick up a sense of community, a sense of togetherness that these people, both employees and customers, had. They seem to know each other, or seem to want to know each other, which was very appealing to me. And maybe for the first time since coming to the Netherlands, I felt a bit at home. So this feeling stayed with me even after leaving the supermarket and eventually leaving the Netherlands. I came back to it sometimes in my thoughts, and eventually it led me to writing this reportage for JÁDU, which turned out, the preparations for it turned out to be a bit more tricky than what I imagined. As an example, the first day I arrived in a Polish supermarket here in Utrecht, supermarket, I hope I pronounced that right. I was supposed to meet with the manager to do interviews about going-ons in the supermarket and stuff, but instead I was greeted by a Polish younger woman who was very nice but seemed very puzzled about my overall presence. So I was taken to the back office, and there she had a back and forth with a colleague. From what I could pick up in their Polish, they were discussing what the hell I was doing there, and as it turned out, they thought I was there to be trained for a job in the supermarket, actually, to work. And it took me quite some time to make it clear that that is not the case. I was not there to learn how to restock shelves and cut meats, but I was there to actually do interviews. Not a great start, but very telling, because language turned out to be quite a recurring issue in this whole experience. We fumbled with questions and answers about home and migration and economic difficulties, and as many languages as we knew, all very badly. Did a lot of physical signing, a lot of gesturing, a lot of Google Translate, and sometimes relied on some cultural similarities that we, of course, had. But overall, I could sense some distance, and it was not satisfying. It was not what I was hoping for. So this initial feeling of familiarity I had started going more to the background, and I started noticing more and more differences. So I came home that day, and I felt very frustrated, I guess, very anxious about how I was going to do this reportage, how I could connect with people without a common language, and ultimately look into a community while remaining on the outskirts myself. So I was hoping answer would magically come to me over the next couple of days, because I already was committed. I was there, I was in the Netherlands, I was going to do this. I had 3 days left, so I was like, let's just do it, let's just go. And I guess it did, in a way. This is Jolanta, the actual manager of the supermarket I was supposed to speak to. Eventually I did, and over a cup of minutka tea and a jar of pickles, she told me all about building a space in the supermarket for new economic migrants who feel displaced, just as she did 30 years ago when she herself arrived in the Netherlands. This is Paulina, or rather the hands of Paulina, who works in the same supermarket in the meat section, and she offered me quite a few slices of cured meats. Mind you, I do not like meat, I do not eat meat, but I did not have the language or the heart to tell her no, so I ate the meat, and between the tastings, she told me about feeling very, very lonely and very displaced between her Dutch neighbors, and actually how the only place where she feels at home is the supermarket when she talks with people. And similarly, this is Carolina, who works also at the meat aisle, but in a different supermarket in Amsterdam, who similarly gave me many meats that I eventually put in my jeans pocket when no one was looking. And she also shared a story of a home that no longer is her home because of the recurring racism and economic precarity she experienced, and I guess still experiences to an extent. So, turns out I had to taste the supermarket, and the common language was the food and the similarities in taste we shared. Connections were made through a jar of pickles, through meats I did not want but ate, through Polish sweets. Through all of that, connections were made and created. And on my last day, I was in Krakow's supermarket in Amsterdam. I was talking with Agnieszka, an employee who works there, and she was one of those who lost her words a lot due to shyness or broken, fragmented English. And in one of those moments, she disappeared between the aisles and returned with a handful of something. And she opened her palm to me, holding a bunch of kroki, a sweet I knew from my childhood. Growing up, I ate it all the time. And at that moment, we understood each other perfectly.
Right.
Thank you.
Beautiful story. So this was our last presenter, and if you are interested in the topics discussed here, so check the Kapitál, Kultura liberálna, Nara, JÁDU, and Revue Prostor. And in general, support independent media, because the stories we heard here you will not find in mainstream media, and that's why we need independent media. So tomorrow there is a big demonstration in favor of public Czech television, so hopefully we will meet some of you there tomorrow, and in any way just support any independent media you like or you follow in any way you can.
Yeah, we should mention again, stay with us here. Check out the QR codes. I said it several times. It would be really nice to hear or read your opinion on this evening. And now I would like to ask all of our performers here on stage, and I hope they will get a big applause. Elias, Bučko, Viktória, Citráková, Anastasiia, Aharková, Nika, Datiashvili, JÁDU. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming here.
Yeah. So again, applause for our guests. And I would like to thank my colleagues from Revue Prostor, Lucie, Michael and Laura, who produced the event, also Teresa from JÁDU, and for doing a fantastic job. Also, we would like to thank Mudaki, and it's not all. Please stay here because we'll have after party and a real DJ set. So, wow. So have a nice evening, and thank RefuFest and Jana and Bara who are organizing it. So long live RefuFest!